The sound of my key turning in the lock echoed through the hallway. I wasn't supposed to be home for another 6 hours. The conference had been canceled at the last minute, something about the keynote speaker having a medical emergency, and I jumped at the chance to come home early to my husband. Maybe we could finally have that conversation we'd been putting off for weeks. Maybe I could tell him what I'd been carrying inside me like a secret treasure. Maybe today would be the day everything changed. I pushed open the door to our bedroom, already rehearsing the words in my head. "Malik, I have something to tell you." The words died in my throat. My husband was in our bed, the one we'd picked out together 3 years ago, the one where he'd promised to love me forever on our wedding night. But he wasn't alone. The woman beneath him had her head thrown back, dark curls spilling across my pillow. Her hand, the one wearing my grandmother's bracelet, the one I'd lent her just last week, clutched at his back. Her very pregnant belly pressed against him as they moved together. My sister, my baby sister, Chanel. I must have made a sound. Some kind of strangled gasp that came from a place so deep inside me I didn't know it existed. Because they both turned, Malik's face went from pleasure to shock to something that looked almost like relief. Chanel's eyes met mine, and I saw no shame there. None at all. Just a cold, calculating satisfaction. "Kendra," Malik said, scrambling off her, not even bothering to cover himself. "It's not—" "Don't," I whispered. The word came out like broken glass. "Don't you dare say it's not what it looks like." Chanel sat up slowly, deliberately, one hand resting on her swollen belly. She was 7 months pregnant. I had thrown her a baby shower just 2 weeks ago. I'd spent $3,000 on decorations, food, and gifts because she said the baby's father had abandoned her. Because she said she had no one. Because I was a fool. "How long?" I heard myself ask. My voice sounded strange, detached, like it was coming from someone else's body. "Kendra, baby, let me explain," Malik started. "How long?" I screamed at this time, and they both flinched. Chanel smiled. Actually smiled. "A year," she said, her voice sweet as poison. "A little over a year now. A year. 12 months. 365 days of lies." I did the math automatically, helplessly. Counted back from her pregnancy, the baby shower, the gender reveal party I'd helped plan, the first ultrasound appointment I'd driven her to because she said she was too nervous to go alone. "The baby," I whispered, staring at her belly. "That's why you wouldn't tell anyone who the father was." "Finally catching up," Chanel said, stretching like a cat in my bed. "You always were slow on the uptake, big sis." Malik found his underwear, pulled it on. "Kendra, I wanted to tell you. I tried so many times." "You tried?" I laughed, and it sounded insane, even to my own ears. "You tried while you were screwing my sister in our bed? While you were putting a baby in her? While you were lying to my face every single day?" Before I continue, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you. And if this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. "It just happened," Malik said, and I wanted to claw his eyes out for that pathetic excuse. "We didn't plan it." "Speak for yourself," Chanel interrupted, examining her nails. I knew exactly what I was doing. The casualness of her cruelty took my breath away. This was my sister, my baby sister who I'd protected our whole lives, who I'd paid for when Mama couldn't, who I'd given a key to my house, to my marriage, to my life. Why? The question came out broken. "Chanel, why?" She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never noticed before, something dark and twisted and hungry. "Because you had everything," she said simply. "The perfect husband, the perfect house, the perfect job, perfect Kendra who everybody loved, who Daddy loved more than me, who got the full ride to college while I got nothing, who got Mama's jewelry when she died. You had everything, and I had nothing. So you took my husband?" I was shaking now, my whole body vibrating with rage and grief. "You're carrying his child, and you did this to hurt me?" "I did this because I could," Chanel said, and there was no remorse in her voice. None. "Because Malik wanted me. Because you're so busy being perfect, you didn't even notice your own husband was bored with you." "Chanel, that's enough," Malik said. But there was no conviction in his voice. Is it true? I turned to him. Were you bored with me? He couldn't meet my eyes. Kendra, you have to understand. The pressure at work, and you're always so focused on your career, and Chanel, she made me feel needed. I'm your wife, I said. I made vows to you. I worked 2 jobs to help pay off your student loans. I supported you through every career change, every failed business idea. I loved you. I know, he said quietly. But love isn't always enough. I thought about the pregnancy test in my purse. The positive one I'd taken that morning, that I'd been planning to surprise him with tonight. 6 weeks along, our baby, the one we'd been trying for, the one he'd said he wanted more than anything. I said nothing. Let them have their moment of victory, because I was already planning, already calculating, and they had no idea what was coming. I turned and walked out of the bedroom, out of the house, got in my car with hands that barely worked and drove. I don't remember the drive to my father's house. 1 minute I was pulling out of my driveway, the next I was sitting in his driveway, staring at the steering wheel, trying to remember how to breathe. Daddy opened the door before I could knock. One look at my face and he knew. What happened, baby girl? I told him. Every word, every terrible, soul-crushing detail. I watched his face go from concern to shock to a fury, so cold and controlled it scared me. My father, Raymond Bridges, was not a man you wanted as an enemy. 63 years old, retired military, connections everywhere. He'd built a successful security consulting business from nothing. He knew people, important people, powerful people. And he loved his daughters. Both of them. Or so I'd thought. That's my grandchild she's carrying, he said finally, his voice deadly quiet. Yes. And Malik, that boy I gave my blessing to, who I welcomed into this family. Yes. He was silent for a long moment. Then, go home, Kendra. Pack your things. Not all of them, we don't want to tip our hand. Just what you need. Come stay here while we figure this out. Daddy. Trust me, baby girl, I got you. They think they won, but they don't know who they're playing with. I should have asked what he meant. Should have pressed for details. But I was so tired, so broken, so grateful that someone was on my side that I just nodded. I went back to the house. Malik and Chanel were in the living room, dressed now, sitting close together on the sofa. My sofa. The one I'd saved for months to buy. Kendra. Malik started when he saw me. We need to talk about this like adults. Like adults, I repeated. Adults don't screw their wife's sister. Adults don't lie for a year. Adults don't destroy families. You're being dramatic, Chanel said. People fall in love, Kendra. It happens. Love, I said. You think this is love? I'm having his baby, she said, rubbing her belly. We're a family now. You need to accept that. I looked at Malik. Do you love her? He hesitated, just for a second, but I caught it. I care about her. And the baby. Do you love her? I asked again. Yes, he said, but I heard the lie in it. Heard what he wasn't saying, not like I loved you. But that doesn't matter now. I went upstairs and packed a bag. Clothes, toiletries, my laptop, important documents. I took my grandmother's jewelry box from the closet, the one Chanel had been eyeing for years. I took the pregnancy test from my purse and put it in my pocket. Evidence. For later. When I came back downstairs, they were kissing on the couch, making sure I saw, making sure it hurt. I'll send for the rest of my things, I said calmly. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce. Kendra, wait. Malik stood up. We should discuss this. The house, the finances. My lawyer will be in touch, I repeated. Don't contact me directly. Everything goes through legal counsel from now on. I walked out with my head high, my bag over my shoulder, and my heart in pieces. But I didn't cry. Not yet. Because crying was for later, when I was safe. When I was with people who loved me, who wouldn't use my tears as another weapon against me. I drove to Daddy's house and let myself in with my old key. He was in his office, on the phone, and when he saw me, he nodded. I'll call you back, he said to whoever was on the line. My daughter just got here. He hung up and looked at me. You okay? No, I said honestly, but I will be. Damn right you will be. He pulled me into a hug, and finally, I let myself cry. I cried for the marriage I'd believed in, for the sister I'd loved, for the family I'd thought we were building, for the baby growing inside me that would now grow up in a broken home. When I was done, Daddy made me sit down and eat, leftover pot roast, cornbread, greens. I didn't think I could stomach it, but he insisted, and somehow the familiar comfort food helped. "Now," he said when I'd finished, "tell me everything again, every detail you can remember, dates, times, anything they said." I told him. He took notes, asked questions, his military training showing through. "The baby," he said finally. "You're sure it's Malik's?" "She said a year. She's 7 months pregnant." "The math works out." He nodded. "And you? How far along are you?" I stared at him. "How did you—" "You've been glowing for weeks, baby girl, and you're drinking ginger tea instead of coffee. I'm old, not stupid." I pulled out the test and showed him. 6 weeks. His face softened. "My grandbaby." I haven't told him. I was going to today. Before I found my voice broke. "Good," Daddy said firmly. "Don't tell him. Not yet. That's leverage, and we're going to need every advantage we can get." "What are you planning?" I asked. He smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. "Chanel wants to play games? She wants to destroy my family? She has no idea who she's dealing with. Neither does that boy." "Daddy, I don't want revenge. I just want out. I want the divorce, and I want them out of my life." "Oh, baby girl," he said, patting my hand. "This isn't about revenge. This is about justice, about making sure they pay for what they've done, about protecting you and your child, and about teaching them a lesson they'll never forget." "What kind of lesson?" "The kind that starts with a phone call to my lawyer and ends with them losing everything they thought they'd won." He picked up his phone and dialed. "Jackson, it's Raymond Bridges. I need you. Family emergency. How soon can you be here?" 20 minutes later, Jackson Pierce walked through the door. 60 years old, silver-haired, expensive suit, one of the best divorce attorneys in 3 states. Daddy's best friend since their Army days. "Ray," he said, shaking Daddy's hand. Then he turned to me. "Kendra, I'm sorry we're meeting under these circumstances. Thank you for coming so quickly. When Raymond Bridges calls, I come." He sat down across from me, pulled out a legal pad. "Tell me everything." I told him. Again. Every humiliating detail. He took notes, asked the same kinds of questions Daddy had, building a case in his mind. "Adultery in the marital home," he said when I finished. "That's good for us. The sister angle makes it worse: emotional abuse, betrayal of familial trust. The pregnancy is complicated, but we can work with it." "How?" I asked. "Illinois is technically a no-fault divorce state, but adultery and cruelty can affect property division and spousal support. If your husband has been conducting an affair, especially with a family member, especially resulting in a pregnancy, the court can take that into consideration." "I want the house," I said suddenly. "Everything in it is mine anyway. I bought it before we got married. His name is on the deed, but I paid for it." "Do you have documentation of that?" "Bank statements, wire transfer records, everything." Jackson nodded approvingly. "Good. What else?" "There's his business, the consulting firm. I funded it, gave him $50,000 from my inheritance when my mother died. He was supposed to pay me back. Did he sign anything? Promissory note? Partnership agreement?" I thought back. "He signed a loan agreement. Said it was just a formality, but I insisted. It's in my safe deposit box." "Smart girl," Jackson said. "That $50,000 is a marital asset that he owes you. With interest." "What about Chanel?" Daddy asked. "She's living in Kendra's house rent-free, eating Kendra's food, using Kendra's money." "We can pursue a civil suit for emotional distress," Jackson said. "But that's harder to prove, more expensive, takes time." "I have time," I said. "And I have evidence." "What kind of evidence?" I pulled out my phone. "Text messages. Between Chanel and Malik, I pay for our family phone plan. All of us, me, Malik, Chanel, even my little brother Terrence. I'm the primary account holder, which means I can access records." I'd been thinking about it on the drive to Daddy's house. remembering all the times Chanel had been glued to her phone, giggling, all the times Malik had stepped out to take calls, all the times they'd both been unavailable at the same time. I logged into the phone company website, pulled up the records. Months and months of texts between them. Hundreds, thousands. I can't read the content without a court order, I said, but I can see dates, times, frequency. And look, I pointed to the screen. Starting about 13 months ago, the volume increased dramatically, multiple times a day, every day. And look at these times, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., when I was asleep. Jackson leaned forward. This is excellent. This establishes a pattern of communication. Combined with your testimony and what you witnessed, it's damning. There's more, I said, pulling up my banking app. Joint account. Look at these charges. I showed them the hotel charges. 4 different hotels, multiple dates, always during the times I'd been out of town for work conferences. Always charged to our joint account, which meant I'd been paying for my husband to cheat on me with my sister. She's stupid and he's arrogant, Daddy said with satisfaction. They didn't even try to hide it. People rarely do when they think they're untouchable, Jackson said. This is good, Kendra. Very good. We can use all of this. What about the baby? I asked. The one she's carrying? That's going to be your brother or sister's child, Jackson said carefully. Your father's grandchild. You need to think about what you want there. I want nothing to do with it, I said immediately, then stopped. No, that's not true. I want that child protected. I want it to have what it needs. But I don't want Chanel using it as leverage. I don't want her getting money from me because of it. Reasonable, Jackson said. We can structure the divorce so that any child support or parental obligations fall solely on Malik. You're not the parent. You have no legal obligation. But the house, Daddy said, if Malik doesn't have income, if we destroy his business, and we will, he can't pay child support. Chanel will come after Kendra. Not if she's working, Jackson said. The girl has 2 hands, doesn't she? She can get a job after the baby comes. And if Malik can't support the child, that's his problem. The court can garnish his wages, but they can't make Kendra responsible for her husband's illegitimate child. Illegitimate. The word hung in the air. I want them to hurt, I said quietly, the way they hurt me. I want them to lose everything. I want Chanel to see that betraying family has consequences. I want Malik to understand what he threw away. Then let's make a plan, Jackson said. We spent the next 3 hours strategizing. Jackson would file for divorce first thing Monday morning. We'd request an emergency hearing for temporary orders kicking Malik out of the house, freezing joint assets, securing my separate property. We'd subpoena phone records, bank statements, credit card bills. We'd depose witnesses, Malik's friends, Chanel's friends, neighbors who might have seen them together. What about work? Jackson asked. Where do you work, Kendra? Morrison and Associates. I'm a senior accountant. Good firm. Stable income. That helps us. What about Malik? He runs his consulting business out of the house. Tech consulting. He has maybe 6 clients, brings in about $80,000 a year. And you? $125,000 base, plus bonuses. Jackson nodded. So you're the primary breadwinner. That's good for us. Illinois courts look favorably on the higher-earning spouse in adultery cases. You're not going to owe him spousal support. In fact, we might be able to get him to pay you, though that's unlikely, given the income disparity. I don't want his money, I said. I want him gone. Understood. But we still need to protect your assets. Everything you brought into the marriage, the house, your savings, the money you lent him that's separate property. We keep that separate. Make sure he doesn't try to claim any of it in the divorce. What if they fight? I asked. What if Malik gets a good lawyer? He won't be able to afford a good lawyer, Daddy said. Not after I make some calls. What kind of calls? Daddy smiled. Malik's business depends on contracts, right? Corporate clients who need tech consulting. I happen to know several of those clients personally. We serve together, or we do business together, or we golf together. I'm going to have some conversations. Explain the situation. Let them know what kind of man they're doing business with. You're going to destroy his business, I said. I'm going to give his clients information they deserve to have. What they do with that information is up to them. It was ruthless. It was calculated. It was exactly what they deserved. Do it, I said. That night, I stayed in my old room at Daddy's house. The room I'd grown up in, with its faded purple walls and the posters I'd never taken down. Lying in my childhood bed, I put a hand on my stomach. I'm sorry, I whispered to the baby growing inside me. I'm sorry your daddy is a cheater and a liar. I'm sorry your life is going to start like this, but I promise you, I will protect you. I will love you. I will be enough. My phone buzzed. A text from Malik. We need to talk. This is ridiculous. We're adults. I blocked his number. Another text from Chanel. You're overreacting. Malik and I are in love. You need to accept it and move on. I blocked her too. Then I opened a new text to my brother, Terrence. He was away at college, didn't know anything yet. Call me when you can. Important family news. He called 5 minutes later. Ken? What's wrong? I told him. Heard him suck in a breath, curse, go silent. That bitch, he said finally. That absolute bitch. Which one? I asked, trying for humor and failing. Both of them. But especially Chanel. How could she do this to you? After everything you've done for her? I don't know, T. I really don't know. What do you need? You want me to come home? I can get a flight tonight. No, I said. Stay in school. Focus on your exams. Daddy and I have this handled. You're sure? I'm sure, but T? Don't tell her I told you. Don't tell her anything. If she calls, if she texts, just don't respond. Not yet. Why not? Because we're building a case. And the less she knows about what we're doing, the better. He was quiet for a moment. You're going to destroy them, aren't you? I'm going to make them pay for what they did. Good, he said fiercely. They deserve it. Both of them. After we hung up, I lay in the dark and thought about the family I'd had a week ago. Daddy, me, Chanel, Terrence. Close. Loving. Or so I'd thought. But Chanel had been poisoned by jealousy for years. Had I really not seen it? Or had I chosen not to see it because acknowledging it would have meant acknowledging that my sister hated me? I thought about all the times I'd helped her, paid her rent when she was short, bought her groceries, given her my old car when I upgraded, let her move in with me and Malik for 6 months when she'd lost her job. I'd done all of it out of love, out of family loyalty, and she'd repaid me by sleeping with my husband. The rage came then. Not hot and explosive, but cold and calculating, the kind of rage that plans, that strategizes, that doesn't just want to win, it wants total annihilation. They thought they'd won, thought they'd broken me, thought I'd roll over and accept it like I'd accepted everything else in my life. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Monday morning, Jackson filed for divorce. By noon, Malik had been served with papers at the house. By 2 p.m., he was calling Daddy's house, demanding to talk to me. Daddy answered, "She doesn't want to talk to you." "This is insane, Raymond. I have rights." "You have the right to an attorney. I suggest you get one. A good one. You're going to need it." "I'm not leaving my house." "It's not your house. It was Kendra's before you married her. It's hers now, and it'll be hers when this is over. You're living there on borrowed time." "We'll see about that." "Yes," Daddy said pleasantly. "We will." He hung up and smiled at me. The boy has no idea what's coming. The emergency hearing was set for Wednesday. 2 days to prepare. Jackson worked around the clock, pulling together evidence, preparing arguments, filing motions. I went to work like everything was normal, told no one what was happening, smiled and answered emails and did my job like my life wasn't falling apart. But inside, I was planning, calculating, getting ready for war. Tuesday night, Daddy made his calls. I listened from the next room as he spoke to Malik's clients. His voice was calm, professional, just a concerned father sharing information. "I thought you should know that Malik Bridges is currently involved in a divorce proceeding. Apparently, he's been conducting an affair with his wife's sister." "Yes, the sister. Yes, in the marital home." I can't speak to his professional competence, but I thought you'd want to know about his character before renewing any contracts. By Wednesday morning, Malik had lost 3 clients. $45,000 in annual revenue, gone. The emergency hearing was at 10 a.m. I dressed carefully, conservative navy suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back. I looked professional, respectable, nothing like the wronged wife falling apart. Malik showed up with a cheap lawyer he'd found on Google. The man looked overwhelmed before we even started. The judge was Honorable Patricia Morgan, a black woman in her late 50s with a reputation for not suffering fools. She read through Jackson's motion, looked at the evidence we'd submitted, and then fixed Malik with a stare that could have melted steel. "Mr. Bridges," she said, "is it true that you engaged in an extramarital affair with your wife's sister, resulting in a pregnancy, and conducted this affair in the marital home?" Malik's lawyer started to speak, but the judge held up a hand. I asked Mr. Bridges. Malik shifted in his seat. "Your Honor, yes, but—" "Yes or no, Mr. Bridges?" "Yes. And is it true that the marital home was Mrs. Bridges' separate property prior to the marriage, purchased with her own funds?" "Yes, but I've contributed. I see mortgage payments, utilities, and home improvements all paid from Mrs. Bridges' accounts. I see very little financial contribution from you, Mr. Bridges." "What, exactly, have you contributed?" His lawyer whispered something to him. "Your Honor, I run a business from the home, a business Mrs. Bridges funded with a $50,000 loan from her inheritance, a loan you have not repaid. Is that correct?" I was going to pay her back. "When? After you divorced her and married her pregnant sister?" The courtroom went silent. Even the court reporter looked up. "Your Honor," Malik's lawyer said desperately, "my client's personal life, while regrettable, shouldn't impact—" "The court disagrees," Judge Morgan said crisply. "Mr. Bridges has shown a pattern of financial dependence on his wife while simultaneously betraying her in the most egregious manner possible. This court has no sympathy for such behavior." She looked at Jackson. "What are you requesting, counsel?" "Immediate, exclusive possession of the marital home for Mrs. Bridges, temporary restraining order preventing Mr. Bridges from returning to the property, freezing of joint accounts pending final division, and enforcement of the loan agreement for the $50,000 plus interest." "Granted, all of it. Mr. Bridges, you have until 6 p.m. today to remove your personal belongings from the home. Mrs. Bridges will be there with a police officer to ensure you take only what belongs to you. Joint accounts are frozen, effective immediately. You will each receive half of the current balance, but no further transactions are permitted, and the $50,000 loan is now due and payable within 30 days. Failure to pay will result in a judgment and wage garnishment." "Your Honor, I don't have $50,000, Malik started. "Then you shouldn't have borrowed it." Court adjourned. The gavel came down. I sat there, letting it sink in. I'd won. The first battle, at least. Malik had to leave. The house was mine. The money was protected. Jackson leaned over. "That went better than I could have hoped. Judge Morgan clearly doesn't appreciate cheaters." "What happens now?" I asked. "Now he moves out. We proceed with discovery, getting all financial records, deposing witnesses, building the case for final division. The divorce will take a few months, but with his behavior and this temporary order, we're in an excellent position." Malik stormed out of the courtroom without looking at me. His lawyer followed, already looking like he regretted taking the case. If this story is making your blood boil like mine was, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, the revenge gets so much better. Your support means everything to this channel. At 5 p.m., I met Officer Rodriguez at the house. Malik was already there, throwing clothes into garbage bags, his face red with fury. "You can't do this," he said when he saw me. "This is my home too." "Not according to Judge Morgan," I said calmly. "You have 1 hour. Take your clothes, your personal items, your computer equipment for work, nothing else." "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem. Maybe Chanel can take you in." "Oh wait, she's living in my house rent-free. How's that going to work out?" His jaw clenched. "You're really going to do this? Throw me out like trash?" "No," I said. "You threw yourself out when you decided to screw my sister in our bed." He looked like he wanted to hit me. Officer Rodriguez stepped closer, hand on his belt, and Malik thought better of it. I watched him pack. Watched him move through the house we'd shared, taking his things, leaving holes where his life had been. When he went into the office, I followed. Watched him pack up his computer, his files, his external drives. "The desk stays," I said. "I bought it. I need it for work. Buy your own desk." You're a businessman, right? You can afford it. Oh wait, you just lost 3 clients. Maybe you should be more careful about your professional reputation." His face went white. "You told them. You and your father. We told them the truth. What they chose to do with that information is their business." He grabbed his things and stormed out to load his car. Officer Rodriguez helped him carry boxes, watching him carefully. "The other one," Rodriguez said to me quietly. "The sister. She's still here? She was supposed to leave yesterday, but I don't know if she did." We went upstairs. Chanel's things were still in the guest room, clothes, makeup, baby things, but Chanel herself was gone. I pulled out my phone and called her number. It rang and rang, then went to voicemail. "Chanel, it's Kendra. You have 24 hours to get your things out of my house. After that, I'm changing the locks, and whatever's left goes to Goodwill, including the baby stuff." I hung up and smiled at Officer Rodriguez. "She'll be back." She was. At 8 p.m., driving a rental U-Haul, with Malik following in his car. They'd clearly been strategizing, deciding how to play this. I let them in. Stood in the doorway with my arms crossed while they packed her things. Chanel wouldn't look at me. Malik glared at me like this was all my fault. "You know," Chanel said finally, struggling with a box of baby clothes, "you're being ridiculous about this. Malik and I are going to be a family. We love each other. You should be happy for us." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Happy for you? You're pregnant with my husband's child, living off my money, and you want me to be happy for you? I'm pregnant and you're throwing me out." What kind of sister does that? The kind whose sister betrayed her in the worst possible way. But don't worry, Chanel. I'm sure Malik will take care of you. He's such a good provider after all. Oh wait, he's not. He's a mooch who's been living off my money for 3 years. Good luck with that. "We'll be fine," Malik said. "I have clients." "Had clients," I corrected. Past tense. "By this time next week, you'll be lucky if you have any business left. And then what? Where are you going to live? How are you going to support your baby mama?" "Don't call her that," he snapped. "Why not? That's what she is. She's carrying your illegitimate child. That makes her your baby mama. Or did you think you were going to marry her? Make an honest woman out of her?" Chanel's head snapped up. "Malik and I are getting married." "Are you?" I looked at him. "Is that the plan, Malik? You're going to divorce me and marry my sister?" He didn't answer. Couldn't meet her eyes. "Oh, Chanel," I said, almost pitying her. "He hasn't proposed, has he? He hasn't even mentioned marriage. Because he doesn't love you. He never loved you. You were just convenient. Available. Stupid enough to fall for his lies." "Shut up," Chanel hissed. "Or what? You'll sleep with my husband? Too late. You already did that. You'll ruin my life? Too late. You already did that too. You have no power here, little sister. You have nothing. And in a few months, when that baby comes and you realize Malik can't support you, can't give you the life you thought you were getting, you're going to regret every choice you made. Get out," Chanel said, her voice shaking. "Both of you. Get out of my sister's house." They left, took their things and drove away, and I locked the door behind them. Then I walked through every room, reclaiming my space, stripped the bed in the master bedroom and threw everything in the trash, bought new sheets, new pillows, a new comforter, made the bed fresh and clean, like he'd never been there. Did the same in the guest room. Got rid of everything that reminded me of Chanel. The pictures, the little gifts she'd given me, the clothes she'd borrowed and never returned. By midnight, the house was mine again. Just mine. Clean and quiet and empty. I sat in the living room with a cup of tea and let myself feel it all. The grief, the rage, the betrayal. Let it wash over me and through me and out of me. Then I called Daddy. "It's done," I said. "They're out. Good girl. How do you feel?" "Like I can breathe again." "That's my daughter. Now you get some rest. Tomorrow, we start phase 2. "What's phase 2? "You'll see." Phase 2 started with a phone call from Jackson. "Kendra, I need you to pull together all documentation of money you've paid for Chanel over the years. Rent, groceries, utilities, car payments, anything you can document." "Why?" "Because we're going to sue her." "For what?" "Fraud, emotional distress, and alienation of affection." "I thought you said those cases were hard to win." They are. But they're not impossible, and more importantly, they're expensive to defend. Chanel doesn't have money. She's going to have to get a lawyer, pay fees, deal with depositions and court dates. Even if she wins, she loses, because it's going to cost her time, money, and stress. And that's the point. You want to make her suffer. I want to make her understand that actions have consequences. She hurt you, she betrayed your family, and she gets to pay for it, not just emotionally, financially, legally, every way we can make her pay. I thought about it. Thought about Chanel sitting in depositions, having to answer questions about her affair, having to defend herself, having to watch her reputation get shredded in court documents that would become public record. Do it, I said. The lawsuit was filed 3 days later. Civil complaint alleging fraud, for pretending to need help while conducting an affair, intentional infliction of emotional distress, for the affair itself and the betrayal, and alienation of affection, for deliberately pursuing and seducing Malik. The papers were served on a Thursday. By Friday, Chanel was calling Daddy's house, screaming, "You can't do this! You can't sue me! I'm pregnant!" "Being pregnant doesn't give you immunity from consequences," Daddy said calmly. "I don't have money for a lawyer." "Then you should have thought about that before you destroyed your sister's marriage. Good luck, Chanel." He hung up on her. She tried calling me next. I didn't answer. Sent it straight to voicemail. "Kendra, please. I'm sorry. I know I hurt you, but this is too much. I can't afford a lawsuit. Please, for the baby's sake. Delete." She tried Terrence next. He forwarded me the screenshot of her text. "Your sister is ruining my life. Please talk to her. Please make her stop." His response, "You ruined your own life. Actions have consequences. Good luck with the baby." She tried every mutual friend we had, every family member, everyone we knew. Crying, begging, trying to play the victim. No one was buying it, because Daddy had gotten there first. Called everyone we knew, explained what happened, made sure they understood exactly who was at fault. Chanel was alone, just like she deserved to be. Meanwhile, Malik's business was circling the drain. He'd lost 5 clients now. Started posting desperate messages on LinkedIn about looking for new contracts, offering discounted rates. No one was biting. "He's toxic," Daddy explained. "In this town, in this industry, reputation is everything. And his reputation is that he's a man who betrays his family, who cheats on his wife, who can't be trusted. Who wants to do business with that?" The divorce proceedings continued. Discovery was brutal. Every text message between Malik and Chanel, every hotel charge, every lie he'd told, all laid out in legal documents. Jackson deposed Malik's friends, asked them direct questions. "Did you know about the affair? Did Malik tell you? Did you see them together?" Some lied. Some told the truth. All of them looked uncomfortable having to testify. We deposed Chanel too, 9 months pregnant now, due any day, sitting across from Jackson in a conference room, having to answer questions about when the affair started, how many times they'd had sex, whether she'd intended to break up my marriage. "I loved him," she said, crying. "I didn't mean for it to happen." "But you pursued him anyway," Jackson said. "You saw your sister's husband and decided you wanted him." "It wasn't like that." "Then how was it, Miss Bridges? Help me understand how you ended up pregnant with your sister's husband's child if you weren't pursuing him." She had no good answer. The baby came 3 weeks later. A girl. 7 pounds, 6 ounces. Perfectly healthy. Chanel called me from the hospital. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. "She's here. Your niece. Don't you want to meet her?" I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. Daddy went. Told me later that the baby was beautiful. Looked like our side of the family. That Chanel had named her Maya. That Malik had been there but looked terrified, like he was finally realizing what he'd gotten himself into. "Do you want to see her?" Daddy asked me gently. "No," I said. "Maybe someday. But not now. Right now she's just a reminder of everything they took from me." I didn't tell Daddy I was 16 weeks pregnant now. Didn't tell anyone except my doctor. Because this baby was mine. My secret. My future. And I wasn't ready to share that with anyone, even the people who loved me. The divorce was finalized 6 months after I'd found them together. I got the house, my savings, my retirement accounts. Malik got nothing except a debt. The $50,000 he'd borrowed plus 3 years of interest, which came to $64,000. He couldn't pay it, declared bankruptcy, lost his business officially, had to get a job working tech support for a call center, making $35,000 a year. Chanel had to go back to work when Maya was 6 weeks old, got a job as a retail clerk at a department store, minimum wage. Her mother, our mother, would have been horrified, couldn't help, because she was dead, and Daddy refused to give Chanel a penny. They moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in a bad part of town, fought constantly about money, about the baby, about whose fault it was that their lives had fallen apart. I knew all this because Terrence kept me updated. He'd see them sometimes, run into them at the grocery store or the mall. Malik looked tired, worn down. Chanel looked bitter, angry, like she'd finally realized she'd traded a sister who loved her for a man who'd used her. The civil lawsuit was settled out of court. Chanel couldn't afford to fight it, so she agreed to a payment plan. $500 a month for 5 years. She'd pay me back every penny I'd spent on her, with interest. She'd never really be able to afford it, would probably default within a year. But that wasn't the point. The point was making her acknowledge, in writing, in a legal document, that she owed me, that she'd taken from me, that she had a debt that would follow her for years. Justice served. I gave birth to my daughter on a Tuesday in March. 7 pounds, 2 ounces. Perfect in every way. I named her Grace, because that's what she was unearned. Undeserved grace in the middle of my broken life. Daddy was there. Terrence flew home from school. We didn't tell Malik, didn't tell Chanel. This joy was mine, and I wasn't sharing it with the people who'd tried to destroy me. When Grace was 6 weeks old, I went back to work. Morrison and Associates had been understanding through the divorce, the pregnancy, everything. They gave me flexible hours, let me work from home when I needed to, supported me through it all. I'd been promoted during my maternity leave. Senior Vice President of Accounting, $175,000 a year, plus bonuses. Corner office. My own team. I'd not only survived, I'd thrived. One Saturday afternoon when Grace was 3 months old, I was at the park with her when I saw them. Malik pushing Maya in a stroller, Chanel walking beside him, arguing about something. They both looked exhausted, broke, unhappy. Maya was beautiful. Dark curls, big eyes, chubby cheeks. She looked so much like Chanel had as a baby that it hurt. They saw me. Stopped. Stared at the baby in my arms. "Kendra," Chanel said. "Is that—" "None of your business," I said calmly. Malik's face had gone white. "How old?" "None of your business." "If she's mine," he started. "She's not. She's mine. And you have no rights to her, no claim to her, no role in her life. You signed those away when you chose to destroy our marriage." "I have a right to know if I have another child," Malik said, his voice rising. "No," I said. "You have a right to the child you chose, the one you made with my sister. That one," I pointed to Maya. "Grace is mine alone, and you will never, ever be a part of her life." "You can't keep a child from their father," Chanel said. "That's parental alienation." "It's only parental alienation if he's actually the father," I said. "And he's not. Check the birth certificate." "No father listed, because I chose not to list one, because I'm raising her alone, because I don't need him. I never did." It wasn't entirely true. Legally, if Malik pursued it, we'd have to do a paternity test, but he'd have to pursue it, which meant lawyers, which meant money he didn't have. And I was betting he wouldn't fight, because fighting meant admitting that he'd gotten both sisters pregnant. Meant public exposure of just how much of a mess he'd made of his life, meant facing a judge who'd ask why he couldn't support the first child he'd fathered, much less a second. He looked at Grace, looked at me, and I saw the moment he decided not to fight. "Fine," he said. "Keep your baby. We don't need you anyway." "No," I said. "You never did. You needed my money, my house, my support, but you never needed me. And that's fine, because I don't need you either. I never did." I walked away, pushing Grace's stroller, and didn't look back. Behind me, I heard Chanel start crying. Heard Malik telling her to shut up. They needed to go, People were staring. Good. Let them stare. Let them see what happens when you betray family, when you choose selfishness over love, when you destroy something beautiful for something cheap and temporary. That night, I rocked Grace to sleep and whispered to her all the things I wished someone had whispered to me. You are loved. You are wanted. You are enough, just as you are. You don't have to compete for affection or prove your worth. You are precious simply because you exist. She cooed, her little hand wrapping around my finger, and I felt something in my chest loosen and warm. I had lost a husband and a sister, but I had gained so much more. I had gained my self-respect, my strength, my independence, my daughter, my life back, and that was worth more than anything they'd taken from me. Months passed, then a year, then 2. Malik and Chanel broke up when Maya was 18 months old. Couldn't handle the stress, the poverty, the reality that their affair had cost them everything and given them nothing. Chanel moved back in with Daddy for a while. He let her, but on strict conditions. She had to work, had to pay rent, had to take responsibility for Maya. No more handouts, no more excuses. She tried to apologize to me several times. Called, texted, showed up at my office once. I didn't want to hear it. Didn't need to hear it. Some betrayals are too deep to forgive. Some wounds don't heal. They just scar over. And I was fine with that. Malik disappeared for a while, moved to another state, trying to escape his reputation. Last I heard, he was working at a Best Buy in Phoenix, barely making enough to send child support. Maya was 4 now. Beautiful, sweet, smart, and innocent in all of this. When she was old enough to ask, I'd tell her the truth, that her mother and father made terrible choices, that they hurt people who loved them, that actions have consequences. But I'd also tell her that she was loved, that she was my niece, my blood, and that none of what happened was her fault. I'd make sure she knew that family was complicated, that people made mistakes, but that she was wanted and valued and important. Because that's what Grace would need to know too, someday. And I was going to make sure both of them understood that love wasn't about biology. It was about choice, about showing up, about doing the right thing, even when it was hard. Grace was 2.5 now, starting to talk in full sentences, asking endless questions, filling my life with laughter and mess and joy. I'd started dating again. Nothing serious, just testing the waters, remembering what it felt like to be wanted for myself, not for what I could provide. His name was James, a lawyer, not Jackson, someone I'd met through work. Kind, stable, patient. He knew my story, knew about the divorce, about Grace, about all of it. And he stayed anyway. You're remarkable, he told me once. You went through hell and came out stronger. I had no choice, I said. It was get stronger or let them break me, and I refused to break. That's what makes you remarkable. I didn't know if it would work out with James, didn't know if I was ready for that kind of trust again, but I was willing to try, willing to be open to the possibility that not all men were like Malik, that not all love ended in betrayal. Life had a way of surprising you. Sometimes the surprises were terrible, like walking in on your husband with your sister. Sometimes they were beautiful, like holding your daughter for the first time. The key was surviving the terrible ones long enough to experience the beautiful ones. And I had survived. More than survived, I had conquered. I looked at my life now. Successful career, beautiful daughter, supportive family, potential for new love. I had everything I needed and more. Malik and Chanel had nothing but regrets and broken dreams. That was justice. Real, satisfying, complete justice. Not because I'd destroyed them, though I had, with Daddy's help and Jackson's legal expertise, but because they'd destroyed themselves. I just made sure they faced the consequences. 5 years after everything fell apart, I stood in the lobby of the federal courthouse, straightening my burgundy power suit and checking my reflection in the polished marble wall. Grace held my hand, almost 8 years old now, wearing a navy dress and patent leather shoes. She looked up at me with those serious brown eyes that saw everything. "Mama, why are we here?" she asked for the 3rd time. "Because sometimes people have to answer for the things they've done," I told her. "And today is one of those days." James squeezed my other hand. We'd been married for 6 months now, a a small ceremony with just family and close friends. He'd adopted Grace officially last month. She called him Dad without hesitation, without confusion. Because he'd earned it by showing up every single day, by loving her without condition, by being everything Malik had never been. "You ready for this?" James asked quietly. "I've been ready for 5 years. The case had taken that long to build. IRS fraud investigation, triggered by an anonymous tip that Daddy may or may not have made. Turned out Malik had been hiding income, not reporting cash payments from clients, claiming fraudulent business expenses. And Chanel had been complicit, signing tax returns as his common-law wife, benefiting from the fraud. They'd thought they were so clever. Thought they'd gotten away with it. They were about to learn otherwise. We took the elevator to the 4th floor. The courtroom was already filling up other defendants, lawyers, federal prosecutors in their sharp suits. I spotted Assistant U.S. Attorney Monica Reeves, the woman who'd been building the case. She nodded at me with professional courtesy. Then I saw them. Malik walked in first, thinner than I remembered, gray threading through his hair though he was only 37. He wore a cheap suit that didn't fit right, probably borrowed. His public defender followed, a young woman who looked like she'd drawn the short straw. Chanel came next, and I almost didn't recognize her. The beautiful, vivacious sister I'd grown up with had been replaced by a woman who looked a decade older than her 32 years. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun. Her dress was dated and ill-fitting. She kept her eyes down, wouldn't look at anyone. Behind her walked Maya, now 6 years old, holding the hand of our cousin Diane. Diane had gotten custody 8 months ago when Chanel had been deemed an unfit mother not because of abuse, but because of instability. 3 evictions in 2 years. Job hopping. Depression she refused to treat. A child welfare investigation that had found Maya living in conditions no child should endure. Maya saw Grace and her whole face lit up. The girls knew each other now, played together at family gatherings that Chanel was no longer invited to. Grace waved, and I let her walk over to her cousin. "Hi, Maya," Grace said shyly. "Hi, Gracie. Look, Diane got me new shoes." Maya stuck out her foot, showing off light-up sneakers. They were just kids, innocent in all of this adult mess, and I'd made sure Maya knew she was loved, that she had family, even if her parents had failed her spectacularly. The bailiff called for order. "All rise." The Honorable Judge Marcus Webb presiding. We stood as the judge entered, a black man in his 60s with steel gray hair and an expression that suggested he'd seen every lie, every excuse, every manipulation tactic twice over. "Be seated," he said, settling into his chair and pulling the case file toward him. United States versus Malik Bridges and Chanel Bridges. Tax fraud, conspiracy to defraud the United States, false statements on federal tax returns. Malik's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client would like to address the court." "Counsel, your client will have that opportunity. First, I want to hear from the government. Miss Reeves?" Monica Reeves stood, and I felt a surge of satisfaction. She was brilliant, ruthless, and she'd spent 18 months documenting every lie, every hidden dollar, every fraudulent deduction. "Your Honor, the government has proven beyond any doubt that Mr. Bridges and Miss Bridges engaged in a systematic pattern of tax fraud spanning 4 years. They underreported income by more than $200,000. They claimed fraudulent business expenses totaling $85,000. They filed false joint returns despite not being legally married in order to fraudulently claim tax benefits." She walked the judge through it all. Bank records showing cash deposits that were never reported. Clients who testified they'd paid Malik in cash at his request. Business expense receipts that had been fabricated, a paper trail so clear that even the most lenient judge couldn't ignore it. "The government requests the maximum sentence under the guidelines," Monica concluded. These defendants showed no remorse, made no attempt to come clean until they were caught. They stole from every honest taxpayer in this country, and they did it deliberately and repeatedly. Judge Webb turned to Malik. "Mr. Bridges, do you wish to make a statement?" Malik stood, his hands shaking. "Your Honor, I made mistakes. I know that. But I was desperate. My business failed. I had child support to pay. I had a family to feed. You had obligations. the judge interrupted. Obligations you chose to ignore in favor of lining your own pockets. Continue. I'm sorry, Malik said, and his voice cracked. I'm truly sorry. I know I hurt people. I know I broke the law, but I'm asking for mercy. I have a daughter who needs me. You have 2 daughters, Judge Webb corrected, glancing at the file. One you abandoned, one you've barely supported. Your concern for your children seems remarkably recent, Mr. Bridges. Malik's face flushed. He sat down heavily. Miss Bridges? The judge said, looking at Chanel. She stood slowly. She'd been crying, I could tell. Her eyes were red, her makeup smudged. Your Honor, I didn't understand what Malik was doing, she said, her voice barely audible. He handled all the finances. I just signed where he told me to sign. I didn't know it was illegal. You didn't know it was illegal to claim $30,000 in charitable donations you never made? Judge Webb asked. You didn't know it was illegal to report income as business expenses when it was personal spending? Miss Bridges, you have a college degree. You're not a child. Ignorance is not a defense. I was trying to survive, Chanel whispered. After everything fell apart, after I lost my sister, my family, my reputation, I was just trying to survive. By committing federal crimes, the judge said flatly. Your personal difficulties, Miss Bridges, do not excuse criminal behavior. You made choices. You must face the consequences of those choices. I watched her shoulders slump, watched the last bit of defiance drain out of her. Does the victim wish to make a statement? Judge Webb asked, looking at me. I stood, my heart pounding. James squeezed my hand once before I let go. Yes, Your Honor, I do. I walked to the podium, aware of every eye on me. Malik wouldn't look at me. Chanel stared at the table. Your Honor, these 2 people destroyed my life 5 years ago. They betrayed me in the most intimate way possible. They took my trust, my love, my family, and they shattered it all for their own selfish desires. My voice was steady, calm. I'd practiced this. But that's not why I'm here today. I'm here because after they destroyed my life, they continued to make choices that hurt others. They chose to defraud the government. They chose to steal from honest taxpayers. They chose to lie and cheat and scheme rather than face reality and take responsibility. I looked at Chanel then, forced her to meet my eyes. My sister taught me something valuable. She taught me that some people will always choose the easy wrong over the hard right. She taught me that character is revealed in crisis. And she taught me that justice, real justice, isn't about revenge. It's about accountability. I turned to Malik. You were my husband. You promised to love me, honor me, protect me. You broke every one of those promises. And when the consequences of your choices caught up to you, instead of being a man and facing them, you chose to become a criminal. You chose to drag my sister deeper into your mess. You chose to model dishonesty and cowardice for your daughter. I looked back at the judge. I don't ask for mercy for them, Your Honor. I ask for justice, not because I'm vindictive, but because Maya deserves to know that actions have consequences. Grace deserves to know that integrity matters. Every child deserves to grow up in a world where people are held accountable for their choices. I paused, gathering my final thoughts. These 2 people didn't just betray me. They betrayed their child. They betrayed society. They betrayed every principle of honesty and decency. And they did it all while playing the victim, while pretending they had no choice, while refusing to take any responsibility. I looked at both of them one last time. I've moved on. I have a beautiful life, a wonderful family, a successful career. I don't need them to suffer for my sake. But I need them to face justice for everyone's sake. Thank you, Your Honor. I walked back to my seat. James pulled me close. Grace leaned against my side. Judge Webb was silent for a long moment, reviewing documents. I've presided over hundreds of fraud cases, he said finally. I've heard every excuse, every sob story, every attempt at manipulation. What strikes me about this case is the complete absence of genuine remorse. He looked at Malik and Chanel. You both have shown remorse only for being caught. You've expressed sorrow only for yourselves, not for your victims. You've asked for mercy you never showed others. He consulted the sentencing guidelines. Mr. Bridges, you are the architect of this fraud. You had the knowledge, the opportunity, and the intent. You dragged Miss, Bridges into your schemes, but she was a willing participant who benefited from the fraud. You both chose this path repeatedly, over years. He picked up his gavel. Mr. Malik Bridges, you are hereby sentenced to 36 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years supervised release. You will pay restitution to the IRS in the amount of $347,000, including penalties and interest. You will perform 500 hours of community service upon release. Malik's face went white. His lawyer put a hand on his shoulder. Miss Chanel Bridges, you are sentenced to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years supervised release. You will pay restitution jointly and severally with Mr. Bridges. You will perform 300 hours of community service upon release. Chanel made a sound like a wounded animal, turned to look at me with something like hatred in her eyes. I stared back calmly. No triumph, no satisfaction, just calm acceptance. Furthermore, Judge Webb continued, given the circumstances, I am recommending to Child Protective Services that Miss Bridges' parental rights be evaluated. A mother who is incarcerated for fraud, who has shown a pattern of instability and poor judgment, may not be fit to raise a child. No, Chanel gasped. No, please, not Maya. You should have thought about Maya before you committed federal crimes, the judge said. You should have thought about her before you chose fraud over honesty. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down with a sound like thunder. Marshals moved forward to take them into custody. Malik went quietly, his face blank with shock. Chanel fought, crying, reaching toward Maya. "Mama!" Maya called out, confused and scared. Diane held her close, turned her face away. "Don't look, baby, don't look." Grace buried her face in my side. I stroked her hair, murmuring comfort. James stood like a shield between us and the chaos. Within minutes, they were gone. Led away in handcuffs to begin processing. They'd be transferred to federal facilities within the week. Malik would likely go to a minimum security camp. Chanel to a women's facility. And life would go on without them. Outside the courthouse, the autumn sun was bright and warm. Grace and Maya ran ahead to a nearby bench, already giggling about something only children found funny. "How do you feel?" James asked me. "Lighter," I said honestly, "like I've been carrying something heavy for 5 years and I can finally put it down." "You were magnificent in there," he said, pulling me close. "Powerful and dignified. Grace is lucky to have you as a mother." "I'm lucky to have her," I said, watching my daughter. "She saved me, you know. When I found out I was pregnant, when everything was falling apart, she gave me a reason to keep fighting, to not give up." Daddy arrived then, parking his Mercedes and walking over with Terrence. They'd both been in the courtroom but had stayed in the back. "Baby girl," Daddy said, hugging me hard. "It's over. It's finally over." "Yes," I said into his shoulder. "It's over." Terrence hugged me next. "She cried," he said. "Chanel. When they took her away, she was crying for Maya." "Good," I said, and I meant it. "Maybe now she'll understand what she threw away. What she destroyed." "Do you think she'll change?" Terrence asked. "In prison, do you think she'll actually change?" I thought about it. Thought about the sister I'd loved, the woman she'd become, the choices she'd made. "I don't know," I said finally. "And honestly, it doesn't matter. She's not my responsibility anymore. Maya is safe with Diane. Grace is thriving with us. Malik and Chanel made their choices, and now they live with them." We went to lunch, all of us, me, James, Grace, Daddy, Terrence, Diane, and Maya. A family, reconfigured and rebuilt. Different than it had been, but stronger for the breaking. Over burgers and fries, Maya asked, "Is my mama coming back?" Diane looked at me. I nodded slightly. "Not for a while, honey," Diane said gently. "Your mama has to go away for a bit, but you're going to stay with me, and we're going to take good care of you." "Can I still see Gracie?" Maya asked. "Of course," I said. "You can see Gracie whenever you want. Your sisters, cousins, your family, and family takes care of each other." Maya seemed satisfied with that. Went back to coloring on her kids' menu. Grace leaned over. "Mama, Maya can come to my birthday party, right?" "Absolutely." "And can we get her the American Girl doll she wants for Christmas?" I smiled. "We'll see. Because that's what you did. You moved forward. You built new traditions. You created new memories. You refused to let the people who hurt you define your future. That night, after Grace was asleep and James was reading in bed, I stood in the nursery we'd just finished decorating. Soft yellow walls, white furniture, a mobile of stars and moons hanging over the crib. I was pregnant again. 12 weeks. A boy this time, due in the spring. James didn't know yet. I was waiting for the right moment, the right words, but standing there in the quiet, rubbing my still flat belly, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Complete peace. No anger, no bitterness, no regret. Just peace. Malik was in prison. Chanel was in prison. They would serve their time, pay their debt, and hopefully, though I doubted it, learn from their mistakes. But that was their journey, not mine. My journey was here, in this house, with this family, with this life I'd built from the ashes of the old one. I thought about the woman I'd been 5 years ago, the woman who'd come home early and found her world shattered, the woman who'd stood in her childhood bedroom and cried until she had no tears left. That woman had been broken, devastated, lost. But she'd been strong enough to fight back, smart enough to get help, brave enough to rebuild, and now she was someone new, someone better. A mother, a wife, a successful executive, a woman who knew her worth, who demanded respect, who refused to settle for less than she deserved. James appeared in the doorway. "You okay?" "More than okay," I said, turning to him. "I have something to tell you." I took his hand and placed it on my stomach. It took him a moment. Then his eyes went wide. "Are you?" "Yes." "When?" "April." He picked me up and spun me around, both of us laughing. "We're having another baby." "We're having a boy." He set me down, cupped my face in his hands. "You are the strongest, most incredible woman I've ever known, and I am so grateful every single day that you let me into your life. You saved me," I said. "You and Grace. You gave me a reason to believe in love again." "No," he said gently. "You saved yourself. I just got to love you while you did it." We stood there in the nursery, holding each other, planning for the future. And somewhere in federal prison, Malik and Chanel were beginning to understand what they'd lost. Not just me, not just their freedom, but the chance to be part of something real, something beautiful, something worth protecting. They'd thrown it all away for a year of stolen pleasure, for lies and schemes and temporary satisfaction, and now they had nothing but time to think about it. I didn't gloat, didn't celebrate their suffering. I simply moved on, built my life, raised my children, loved my husband, lived well, because that's the best revenge. Not destruction, but success. Not bitterness, but joy. Not dwelling on what was taken, but celebrating what remains. 3 years later, I stood in the living room of our new house, bigger, better, in a neighborhood with excellent schools, and watched Grace and Maya building a fort out of couch cushions. My son, Raymond Jr., named after Daddy, toddled between them, getting in the way and making them laugh. James was grilling in the backyard. Daddy and Terrence were setting up the volleyball net for the family cookout. Diane arrived with Maya's overnight bag. She had her every other weekend now, part of the custody arrangement that had been finalized after Chanel's release from prison. Chanel had served her 18 months, got out 6 months ago. She was living in a halfway house, working as a cashier at a grocery store, seeing Maya once a week under supervision. She'd written me a letter from prison, 4 pages, front and back, apologizing, explaining, begging for forgiveness. I'd read it once, then put it in a box in the attic, not ready to forgive, maybe never ready, but willing to stop actively hating. Because holding on to hate was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And I was done with poison, done with bitterness, done with letting them take up space in my head. Malik was still incarcerated, would be for another 6 months. I'd heard through the grapevine that he was teaching GED classes in prison, actually making something of himself for the first time in his life. Good for him. I hoped he'd learned, hoped he'd change, hoped that when he got out, he'd actually be the father Maya deserved. But that was his journey, not mine. Mine was here, in this moment, with these people, with this beautiful, chaotic, imperfect, absolutely perfect life. "Mama," Grace called, "come see our fort." I walked over, ducked inside the blanket-covered structure, sat cross-legged on the floor with my children and my niece, and let them show me their creation. This was victory. This was justice. This was everything they'd tried to take from me and failed. Because I was still standing, still fighting, still loving, still living, and I had won. Not because they were in prison, not because they'd lost everything, but because I'd refused to let them destroy me. I'd refused to become bitter. I'd refused to give up on love, on family, on happiness. I'd taken the broken pieces of my life and built something new, something stronger, something that couldn't be shaken by betrayal or lies or cruelty. I'd won by choosing to heal, to grow, to become better instead of bitter. And standing there in my living room, surrounded by the laughter of children, the smell of burgers on the grill, the warmth of family and love and home, I finally understood what Daddy had meant all those years ago. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. And justice, real justice, looked like this: a life well lived, a family well loved, a future well earned. That was the ultimate victory. And it was mine, forever.